So Representative Thomas Massie has gone on the record of standing against the big, beautiful bill. And so he's one of the people that I respect. Okay. Yes, I might be politically think differently than him, but I am worried about overall our future economic security, position in the world, and what will happen to all of us in the end. So I want to play this video here with Representative Thomas Massie. And I think it's important that we at least hear his words.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 90 seconds.
Well, I'd love to stand here and tell the American people, we can cut your taxes and we can increase spending and everything's going to be just fine. But I can't do that because I'm here to deliver a dose of reality. This bill dramatically increases deficits in the near term, but promises our government will be fiscally responsible 5 years from now. Where have we heard that before? How do you bind a future Congress to these promises? This bill is a debt bomb ticking. Congress can do funny math, fantasy math, if it wants, but bond investors don't. And this week, they sent us a message. Moody's downgraded our credit rating, and the bond investors who buy our debt and finance our debt demanded higher interest rates on the 10-year note, the 20-year note, and the 30-year note. What does this mean? Very soon, the government will be paying $16,000 of interest alone per U.S. family. And what are we telling them? Instead of taking care of that problem, we're going to give you a $1,600 tax break. Under the taxing and spending levels in this bill, we're going to rack up, the authors say, $20 trillion of new debt over the next 10 years. I'm telling you, it's closer to $30 trillion of new debt in the next 10 years. Mr. Speaker, we're not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic tonight. We're putting coal in the boiler and setting a course for the iceberg. If something is beautiful, you don't do it after midnight. I oppose this bill.
Gentleman's time has expired.
He's right. If something is beautiful, you don't do it at midnight. So the reason why Trump got into office, the one thing that he was running on was the economy. And Doge was promoted a lot. And, you know, at first when I saw Doge, I'm thinking like, okay, let's give it a shot. Let's see what Doge can do. But then came the continued resolution bill. Remember that? Remember that was happening under Biden that then was inherited under Trump, and Chucky Boy Schumer passed it along. Yeah. Turns out all that stuff that Doge cut. Yeah. Turns out, don't be shocked and surprised here, but it turns out, surprise, that all that stuff is still getting funded for. All right. I don't want to say we're walking into a disaster, but hey, listen to my beautiful audience, you know, it's just like what those dumb idiots, you know, who, turned off all the safety alarms for Lahaina said, oh yeah, we didn't want to raise the alarms because we didn't want people to run at a wall of fire. I'm willing to bet you, my audience, if you saw a wall of fire coming to your hometown or coming to your house or wherever you're at, I'm pretty sure a vast majority of me like, oh, wall of fire. Fire is hot. That's dangerous. I'm running the other way. Unfortunately, our elected officials, not only have they created a wall of fire, but they tied us all down, and now we can't escape from that wall of fire. Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there for all of you to hear.
Joining me now, Congressman Thomas Massie from the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. Congressman, good to have you with us. And let's just cut right to it. I want you to explain why you are a no vote on the big, beautiful bill.
Well, it spends way too much money. Look, I'm for the tax cuts, extending those tax cuts. I voted for those in 2017. Here's the problem. We're cutting more taxes and we're increasing spending. And to the extent they say we're cutting spending, that doesn't happen in these first few years. They're saying we'll do that in the later years. The problem is the later years never come. It should be T-ball to repeal the Green New Deal But we're not repealing the Green New Deal in this. The corporate tax subsidies stay in place for at least 4 more years. There's so many problems with this bill that I'm not part of one of those factions you talked about in the intro here. I'm kind of a guy on my own standing up for fiscal responsibility.
You know, Congressman, President Trump.
Now, to be clear, yes, this video did come out at least 2 days before. So it's before midnight.
President Trump had some very unkind things to say about you earlier today. How do you respond to the president's remarks?
Well, I think he was surprised that I came to the meeting today. You know, maybe he thought I would hide, but he asked if I was in the meeting and I raised my hand. He did give me a compliment. He says, my hair is very similar to Rand Paul's, except mine is better than Rand Paul's. So things weren't as, there wasn't as much vitriol in the room after the comments that you saw in the press. He also conceded that, you know, I'm not, I may be kind of smart because I went to MIT, although he reminded us his uncle went to MIT, so he has good genetics. The meeting itself was different than the conversation outside of the room.
So I completely understand where you're coming from on this. I am a fiscal conservative, and I think honestly that's the only thing we have going for us right now as Republicans. But politics is about compromise, and I'm wondering, is there any version of the bill that you would support? What do the Republicans have to do to get you on board here?
Well, look, just do a clean extension of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, repeal the Green New Deal, all of it, root and branch to pay for it, and put real work requirements for able-bodied individuals on Medicaid. That's an 80-20 issue, probably a 95-5 issue. That's all you need to do. You don't need these bailouts for blue state governors where they get their SALT tax, deduction. And if you would do this, Todd, you wouldn't have the problem that we're seeing already, which is Moody's downgraded our bond rating Friday. Yesterday, the markets responded. We're now going to pay 5% interest on 30-year Treasury notes. This isn't your mortgage rate. This is what the U.S. government has to pay to finance not the new debt that's going to come from this bill, but the old debt. So if we would incorporate a semblance of fiscal responsibility in the big, giant, great, wonderful bill, I could be for it. But we're going to blow the budget.
Exactly, and that's what's going to happen with this budget. So, first of all, House Republicans on Thursday morning passed a sweeping bill full of President Trump's legislative priorities, marking a major win for Speaker Mike Johnson, but kicking off what's expected to be a bitter battle with the Senate over achieving key parts of the White House policy agenda. So, is what's also happening. The chamber cleared the sprawling package of a 2014 early morning vote after days of marathon meetings and tense negotiations that spanned both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue and a series of last-minute changes to the bill that were crucial in coalescing Republicans around the measure. In the end, just 2 Republicans, Representative Thomas Massie and Warren Davidson, Massie from Kentucky, Davidson from Ohio, opposed the legislation. House Freedom Caucus Chair Andy Harris voted present. Republicans on the House floor erupted in cheers and applause when Johnson slammed the gavel just before 7 a.m. To close the successful vote. The bill, titled One Big Beautiful Bill Act, adopting Trump's slogan for the measure, extends the tax cuts enacted by the president during his first term in 2017, boosts funding for border, deportation, and national defense priorities, imposes reforms like beefed-up work requirements on Medicaid, which are projected to result in millions of low-income individuals losing health insurance, rolls back green energy tax incentives. By the way, again, on Medicaid, that are projected result of millions of low-income individuals losing health insurance. So Medicare, Medicaid, I mean, heaven forbid what happens to Social Security, any kind, Social Security, Jesus. Everyone's going to get hit. Rolls back green energy tax incentives, among other provisions. increases the debt limit by $4 trillion. It also does away with taxes on tips and overtime, two of Trump's campaign promises. Its passage marks a massive victory for Johnson, who successfully cajoled scores of Republican holdouts, from hardline conservatives to vulnerable moderates, to support the bill before his self-imposed Memorial Day deadline, muscling it through his razor-thin majority. So, by the way, hey, everyone, have a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. But here's something. Here's what's in store. Here's a sign of what's in store if the big beautiful bill passes. Congress can do fantasy math, but when investors put money on the line, the math gets real. Bond markets are already demanding higher returns because Congress isn't serious. The Fed no longer controls the rates. If you're wondering why stocks just all went down at once, we just had a horrible bond auction in the United States for our 20-year treasuries. Oh God. Listen. You know how people feel when, like, it's sort of like those moments when a character in a movie or a TV show, they realize, like, oh no, the bomb is about to go off. Like, that's how I feel right now. Okay. That's how I feel right now. And this is from Common Dreams. Earlier Thursday, the House voted to begin floor debate on the legislation after the GOP-controlled Rules Panel approved a slew of amendments to the bill, including a change that would move up the start date of draconian Medicaid work requirements to December 31st, 2026, resulting in bigger cuts to the program and more people losing coverage. Under an earlier version of the legislation, the work requirements would have taken effect at the start of 2029. The updated bill also gives states a financial incentive not to expand Medicaid coverage under the Affordable Care Act to people with higher incomes than traditional enrollees, though still near the poverty line. If enacted, the House GOP's legislation would slap roughly $1 trillion combined from Medicaid and Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, SNAP, potentially stripping health coverage and food aid from tens of millions of low-income Americans to help fund trillions of dollars in tax cuts that would disproportionately benefit the wealthiest. The bill, which runs over 1,100 pages, would also trigger cuts to Medicare. Republicans just voted for the largest cuts to health care in American history, cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act, said Representative Brendan Boyle, the top Democrat on the House Budget Committee. At least 13.7 million will now lose their health care as a result. And why? To pay for tax cuts for billionaires and special interests. This is a betrayal of the middle class. A Congressional Budget Office analysis released earlier this week showed that U.S. households in the bottom 10% of the income distribution would be worse off if the House Republican bill became law, while the top 10% end up wealthier. Let's call this what it is. Theft, said Representative Jim McGovern, the ranking member of the House Rules Committee. Stealing from those with the least to give to those with the most. It's just bad policy. It's betrayal of the American people. So if you're on Medicare and Medicaid, that's what's going to happen to you. You're gonna lose everything. And this is how the ruling elite not only keep us subservient, but this is how all of us stay in line. This is how all of us don't challenge the system, and this is how all of us be afraid. So for the most vulnerable people, especially our senior citizens, they're going to be struggling. If you're on disability, you're going to be struggling. So senior citizens, the disabled, and the poor. This big, beautiful bill is going to be one big, horrific nightmare. There's going to be nothing beautiful about it. Yeah, cutting taxes. Okay, great. Listen, I hate paying taxes. I hate it with all my heart. I hate taxes so much that it'll make your head spin. But my goodness, what is the cost of this? It's going to be the cost of all of us further on down the road. We are denying safety and prosperity for what? Short-term gain? And hold on, I do want to see how the chat is reviewing about this. But yes, Lawrence, fine, I won't be able to show it out there, but yeah, it's called Screw the Poor Bill. That's what it's going to do. What else we got here? I want to make sure we got a couple other people. Tips included on your credit card are taxable. Absolutely. Marco, yep, it's one big club and you ain't in it. Tips must be paid in cash, otherwise they are taxable. Absolutely. Wesley Donaldson, public banks, ranked choice voting. We've had solutions figured out for decades now. Absolutely. And the big, beautiful bill begets babies, bellies born bare. Yep, that's what it does. It's all part of a plan of control. It's all part of control. It's all big, ugly bill. It's all about power. And look, if you think that this big, beautiful bill is going to benefit any one of us, you're gravely mistaken. We are going to be suffering in the long run for this. So we're all going to get screwed over. And hold on, wait, we got something from Australia. We have a viewing audience member from Australia. Let me make sure I pulled that up here correctly. Roger Meadows, Medicare, Medicaid cuts wouldn't matter if we ran single-payer health care ballot initiative amendments. Absolutely. I agree. I agree. I agree completely. I agree with my audience, all of you. Yeah, yeah. Kit, in a corrupt system, Medicare and Medicaid are good. Liar. Well, look, there are people who do need Medicare and Medicaid. There are people who do need it. I know everything's corrupt. And Mustafa says, yo, something crazy happening in Australia. We have a different screw to poor bill. It's called the unrealized tax. I'm sorry that's happening. And don't worry, Kit. AOC will make cuts permanent in 2030 like Obama did, then Biden. Absolutely. They'll all be permanent. And Lawrence Fine says, I always want to know what it's like to be even poorer than I am now. Well, I'll see you guys in the bread line. My grandpa used to warn me a lot, saying, Kit, I see the depression playing out again. God, I could use his advice again. God, do I miss him. But Representative Thomas Massie, one of the dauntless few, especially in the GOP, speaking out against this. So well done to Representative Thomas Massie for being correct and also being one of the few people to see and call this out for what it is. I may not agree with him on all issues, but he's not wrong. And don't worry, everybody. Now that the big, beautiful bill has passed in the House, it gets in the hands of our wonderful U.S. senators, and they'll never let us down.